Few fictional characters have made such a long evolving impact as DC Comics' Caped Crusader Bruce Wayne aka Batman, who resides in Gotham City. This is a character that has been taken in several forms and spawned into several franchises like video games, comics, TV series besides the movies. This is a character everyone is familiar with. Batman, the Caped Crusader will take a deep dive behind the mythology of the famous comic book character. After the scrapped projects of Batman in the early millenniums, it was now up to Christopher Nolan to bring a reimagination of the classic hero. He was given the task to write and direct the first film that takes the story back in a modern sense in terms of the origin story of the Wayne family, the moment where Bruce becomes an orphan and later the Caped Crusader. The film Batman Begins starred Christian Bale, Michael Caine, Liam Neeson, and Katie Holmes to name a few unsung heroes joining the film. When Nolan first joined Warner Bros.' ambitious voyage of redefining together with screenwriter David S. Goyer, the popular character director himself wanted the film itself to be grounded, something that was absent in prior films. The first film has adapted The Man Who Falls, a short story by Denny O'Neil and Dick Giordano, which is a film adapted from Bruce falling down in a well. What is different with Nolan's vision of the character is that Gotham is no longer an isolated island, but it exists in our reality. Under the influence of Blade Runner from 1982, he tried and successfully created a story that was appealing to the younger audience just like the more adults. With that in mind, it was produced for children in between 11 to 12 just because Nolan wanted to create a film he wanted to see as a child. Therefore, no gory or blood was shown in the film. It is a film where Keanu Reeves, Anthony Hopkins, and Ashton Kutcher were even considered for roles. If those roles were cast, it would become a different film, to begin with. Nolan's imagined from early development in 2003, that it was a complex bipolar lead with such emotional strains that foreshadows the hate for his legacy for Wayne Manor, a building that has a pivotal point in this film. It's almost a second character that helps the story develop the persona of Bruce Wayne of Batman, the intelligent vigilant detective. There are a lot of morality and themes that are underway in the story that hasn't been explored before. One of the key imaginations that Goyer and Nolan did, in this case, is to create the character Rachel Dawson, who is a fake figure that doesn't exist in the comics. She was made up for the film. Without Rachel Dawson, Wayne would have a love interest and there would either be a conflict in the end, thus Batman rescues Dawson after she gets poisoned by Scarecrow. She's a key character in the film and without her, the story would become flat and tedious. Overall, the film pounded in the face of all other franchises' visions of the character. Nolan revamped the mythology that has shaped the character and the fulfilled meaning behind the mystery of Bruce Wayne's complex aura. This is a film that doesn't have been the strongest pursuit of Nolan's trilogy, however. It puts on a strong foothold for the incarnation of the character itself and the meaning that Bob Kane intended in the beginning. It's a redefinition that has given a fair success of a humble beginning. By the end of the film, it also teases a sequel, sparking an interesting event with the 3-year gap between this and that. The Dark Knight from 2008 became an instant classic once it was released. It's the first comic book film to ever be awarded Oscar. This was intended posthumous for Heath Ledger, who portrayed the anonymously Joker in the film. Unlike another version of the Rouge Gallery of Batman's iconic villains, Nolan's portrayal of the main villain is reckless, chaotic, and unpredictable. This gives a sense of an uncontrollable narrative with the antagonist steering the narrative. The approach in the film is mostly inspired by The Godfather and Heat, two films about crooks. The film's also deeply inspired by Frank Miller's interpretation of the famous killer. David S. Goyer, Jonathan Nolan, and Chris have multiple mentions in the press that much of the story is based on Miller's storyline. One is Batman, Year One as a basis for Batman Begins. The filmmakers have also used Batman, The Long Halloween as an inspiration to delve into the relationship between Batman, Dent, and Gordon to stop Joker's erratic, irrational psychotic behavior. Nolan has said that the film sees Batman from Joker's perspective. The Joker becomes something else in the film. He's the main character in the film, from the beginning to the end. At first, glimpse when he takes over the bank robbery and kills his teammates, he is in possession of the story and commands the narrative under his own terms. That scene where two men with clown masks bang a window to smithereens escape to the other side with a wire was done with an IMAX camera. This marks the first film to use that technique. Now it's standard to make film going a more exclusive experience. Speculation has been around that Heath Ledger overdosed due to his eccentric performance, but that is false. One of the facts that we know about him is that he isolated himself for 6 months at a motel in order to test Joker's voice and personality. It was also during this time that the character intended to evolve. Thus, the rumor that his fixation on the character would lead to his death is a myth. As we know by now, Nolan is a practical guy when it comes to practical effects. Even if certain shots are replaced by CG. A lot of the character from Joker is based on Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange from 1971 with Malcolm McDowell. It's a film about a British anarchist gang going rogue in a dystopic future. In the interrogation scene, it might be difficult to realize it, but Christian Bale does actually hit Heath Ledger with all the force he can give. The scene is key as it pivoted the whole film. It's also what the Joker and Batman finally meet for real. As you know, Dawson and Dent were kidnapped in their last meeting. It's a terrific, intense scene that plays out. It's about both goals just as both are each opposite, but Batman is only one bad day from becoming a persona such as Joker. We know by this point that Joker pushes Bruce Wayne to become something like him. To push over the edge. By the end of the scene, Joker gives a clue that leads Batman forward. It's first when Joker is at the gala, searching for Harvey Dent. Instead, Joker encountered a clash with Batman. Released in 2008, with the controversy around the casting and the death of Ledger, the film is declared officially the best comic book film ever made. It precedes all other superhero franchises that even Marvel Studios could prevent. Batman with this film proves that an old character can be rebooted and modernized if the tool is used in the right way, in the right tone. The rebooted story doesn't need unnecessary elements unless it fits and prevails in the plot. Often these days, it is all about the characters and emotions behind it. If it doesn't serve the plot rightfully, it's a pointless path to thrive on. It doesn't matter how many special actors you have, if the actor can't get the job done, it's not worth it. Just like a jigsaw puzzle, only one piece is correct. 4 years later in 2012, Nolan wanted to end the whole franchise with a sublime title of The Dark Knight Rises. It takes place 8 years after the events of The Dark Knight, TDK. Bruce Wayne returns to his mansion. It was never used in the middle film, and in this, it takes time before he joins the fight with the terrorist leader Bane, who sets Gotham in chaos and drags Bruce out to fight once again. This film is the conclusion of over 10 years of planning and filmmaking. Hundreds and hundreds of people were involved in creating an atmospheric Gotham that pushes boundaries in what could be done. There's a lot of day shot in this final film, creating a different tone overall. It's not just as gloomy as a prior film in the trilogy. Few of these shots were shown in the other ones. This film stings out as a white sheet against a black background, as it foretold a myth that in the end forms the whole narrative. The trilogy in this form lands with Ra's al Ghul's legacy and sort of revenge. It stands its ground both as a sequel and a concluded film that wraps up everything neatly, with most things though out. Even if Nolan pushes the boundaries of what Batman can and should do, the human side of him comes in strong contrast. He's a dreary character most of the film, and whiny once he gets back on his feet and starts kicking and fighting. What's not planned out in detail or lives up to the 8 years that passed, is gone. It's a different Gotham. Few locations are revisited in this film compared to the others in the series. A few instances are used once again. The tension is gone, even if there are a lot of emotions. There's no driving force as we get a more relaxed, withdrawn Bruce. A lot of the old arrogant Bruce is shown with few tendencies. After the roller coaster that TDK provided, it's hard to top it. Christopher Nolan in this film proves that he can make a beginning and a middle and the end. We know also that Nolan cut at least 13 scenes in the final film that didn't make the cut. And Nolan is not the director who uses extended cuts. We should at least be proud that we got this almost flawless film, because the overall aspect will never return again anytime soon. He knows how to direct 3 standalone films that are not obviously dependable on each other, but at the same time follow a coherent narrative that works. Compared to the film's Batman from the 1990s, Nolan has come a long way. His films are regarded better and are far better at the same time. Burton's films remain classic. Then we have Zack Snyder, who took the crusade of Batman on a totally different path.